Hi, I'm Randy Cantrell. Welcome to the Year of the Peer podcast with Leo Batari. This podcast is based on a simple truth. Who you surround yourself with matters. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari will interview thought leaders from all walks of life who will share how they leverage peer advantage and show you how engaging your peers more purposefully can hold the key to greater success in business and in life. Today's guest is Jeffrey Hayzlett. Jeffrey is the primetime television host of CSuite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and Executive Perspectives Live on CSuite TV, and is the host of the award-winning All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on CSuite Radio. Hayzlett is a global business celebrity, Hall of Fame speaker, best-selling author, and chairman of CSuite Network, home of the world's most trusted network of C-suite leaders. We welcome Jeffrey to the show.
Jeffrey Hayzlett, welcome to Year of the Peer. So excited to have you here today.
Well, it's good to be here. Thanks so much.
I have to tell you, this whole, notion of, the importance of the company we keep couldn't be more, relevant to us right now, because I just want to let you know how much I and Randy Cantrell, my producer, are both incredibly grateful that you invited us to be part of CSuite Radio. We know that we're surrounded by lots of really good shows who attract a great audience. It's going to help make us better. I hope it adds value to what you're doing there. But I guess to get started, I'd love for you to talk about CSuite Network, CSuite Radio, where this came from for you and what your vision for this is going forward.
Well, Leo, let me first talk about you and Randy. We're honored to have you. A part of it is you're only good as the company you keep, and so you want to have great company, and that's what C-Suite Radio is about. That's what the C-Suite's about. I work in the C-Suite day in and day out with companies from all over the world, and some of the most successful companies, in the world. And I don't want to be trite about saying something like that, but it's absolutely true. And so, and you find out that, especially when I used to be a Fortune 100 officer or Fortune 1000, Fortune 5000, or even just great companies, there's not that many. There's just not that many that are up there. So to have, somebody like yourself and Randy as part of our C-Suite network is important, because we're out there shopping for the top talent. C-Suite Radio is, it's where we're turning up the business, volume on business. It's really what it's about. It's the first world-class podcast network just for business. We started in February with some 21 shows. Today we're into the 40s. I expect it will be at over 100 before the end of the year. That's our goal. Why 100? Because we said so. We just decided that we wanted to go out and do it. We intend to bring on some great shows that doing different things, whether it's on leadership management, finance, entrepreneurism, lifestyle. We want different, diverse shows to be able to talk about things that are in mind on business people. And we do that for what we call the most trusted business network, which is the C-Suite Network. Today we're 500,000 members of the C-Suite Network. It's growing. We have over 70 million views and listens every single month between C-Suite Radio, C-Suite TV, our C-Suite Book Club. So we're very excited to have great talent in what we're doing, and the diversity of education and insight that we get, right here on C-Suite Radio.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the diversity of the shows is really wonderful. Just to be able to go through and just for me to be able to listen to different shows and learn from people some of whom I was familiar with, others not, all really great at what they do, all delivering incredible value either themselves or through their guests. So I think it's just a wonderful thing you've created, and just glad to be a part of it. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Well, and it's what, you got to create the things that people want, and we know they want it. It's very difficult for the C-Suite. Every day the C-Suite leaders of businesses are so consumed with business itself that every minute of their schedule is planned out, even though they're the boss, right? There's so many other things pulling for them. So it's tough for them to be and to do their job. And what's their job? Their job is to truly be the most strategic people in the room. They don't have to be the smartest, because I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, okay? I hire lots of great, smart people, but I'm smart, but I'm not the smartest on everything, because you just literally can't be. There's always someone that knows more than you. But our job is to be the most strategic. And the best way to be strategic is to have great shows like yours and like others who can educate me and keep me up on what's going on. They provide me insights about, either the people I hang with, or insights on the things I should do or the things I shouldn't do, and new methods and all kinds of things that come about. So I'm pretty doggone excited about it all.
So, when you think about this and the way I think you've also, developed this mindset, who are some of the people that come to mind for you? And I realize sometimes it could be a lot of people, so we don't want to be excluding folks, but at the same time, there may be some people who you think about who were surrounded you earlier in your career, either as a peer or a mentor or something that you feel kind of gave you this sense of the fact that we are not have to be doing this by ourselves. Can't be the expert in everything. So tell me a little bit maybe about who are some of the people who provided that influence for you.
I'm going to tell you that the first people were my parents. And the reason I say that is because you might think around, when I would start goofing around or going doing this and hanging out with this person and this person, I can remember my mom and my dad, quite frankly, slapping me upside the head, literally. Now, you can't do that today, folks, okay? Back then, I'm sure Leo might have had this happen every once in a while where, backhand me across the head going, you quit hanging out with those people, all right? And I want to go back to that because what they were saying is, you by who you hang around with, who you associate with, who you socialize with, because we learn through a process of socialization, which means we learn through our social interactions of other people and the people who are around, and that's how we become who we are. Now, they do this with Facebook today. We do this with your friends. We do this with your influencers, and that's truly the strength, but it starts way, way back then. And, I was maybe hanging around a crowd I shouldn't have been hanging around. My mom says, don't you be hanging around. And my dad reinforced it, right? So that was probably the first ones. And then I can even remember one time I took my son when he was about 5 or 6 out deer hunting. Now, and I was in Mississippi visiting my father, and I took my step brother too, who was the same age as my kids. My dad remarried a much younger woman, about almost my age, after he got out of the military, and he had children the same age as my children. So this was his second marriage. And I took those boys out hunting with me, and we're standing around a bunch of men, very salt to the earth men that Mr. Gene Smith and his brother and many others that you just salt to the earth guys. I mean, they might not be the most famous. They might have worked in, somewhat menial jobs, but we're talking about men, real men you could trust. And they were standing around and we're talking about the hunt that we're going to do that day, because they hunt a little different down in Mississippi than we do in South Dakota, for instance. A lot more trees, for instance, one. And I was watching my son and my young brother imitate the men they were standing with. And it was kind of interesting. When one of the older guys would kick his foot, they'd kick their foot. Now, some of these guys also chewed a little tobacco, too. And so they'd spit. My son would spit. So, those are some of my earliest recollections, Leo. I know that's a kind of a different probably answer than you were expecting, because there are some other people. I mean, very famous people that you might not know or know. Paul Riley, former CEO of Synveo. I got to know Kodak Polychrome. He was there. Jim Langley. There was a president of one of the divisions at Kodak. Lots of different, Lee Iacocca and many others who have known over the years, who are real inspirations to me, and who I rely on for advice from time to time. So those are people that I have associated with in my career and got to know. And by the way, men and women, I could make a whole list of them, of hundreds and hundreds of people who have influenced my life.
Well, it's interesting you say, this idea that, it wasn't quite exactly, you spitting when they were spitting, but when they engaged in a certain practice that you thought, wow, that is really a good way to lead, a good way to be with people, a good, and we try to emulate those really good practices that we have. Oftentimes when I'll speak, at certain events, I'll ask people, raise your hand if you were positively influenced by a peer growing up, and you'll have some hands kind of go up. And then, of course, you'll ask, how many of you were ever led astray by a peer in your life? And of course, they all go up as they should. We've all kind of, been there. But, one of the interesting things about you too that may contribute to your ability to find good people to surround yourself with is, I would suggest that you've had to do it repeatedly. You were born in West Virginia, but you moved around a lot as a kid, being with your dad in the military. So you were kind of constantly in this, state of, okay, I've got like a new set of friends and having to figure this out. And how am I going to surround myself with the people that you want to be part of? Is that fair to say?
Oh, without question. You're mentioning my father was in the United States Air Force. He was a sergeant in the Air Force. And so pretty much almost every year or two, at least every couple of years, we moved to a different place. Sometimes we moved back to that place. Sometimes some of those friends that I had in Warner Robins, Georgia, I got to meet up again in Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota at the second time, not the first time, because our families moved from base to base to base. So we had an opportunity. But yeah, I had to reinvent new friends all the time, reinvent new relationships. Maybe that's why I'm an entrepreneur. I like to start new businesses. I never thought about that before, but I'm getting some insight here that I never.
There you go.
Yeah, and you find these things out. Yeah, but I think that is one of the things. I've been to a number of interviews, and people will say, "Well, geez, wasn't that moving around unhealthy? Not healthy or not normal? Not normal." Well, to me, it was perfectly normal. To you, it's not normal. What's not normal is you lived in the same house, same county, same place all your life. That's not normal to me. So, for each of us, we have our own normality, which is our own, and that is what we are used to. And I was used to that. I travel, hundreds of thousands of miles a year on a plane where most people don't do that. I pick up and go to most cities like most people go to the 7-Eleven. So to me, those things are normal.
One of the things that we talked about in the book, The Power of Peers, last year was this idea of the Stanford Graduate School of Business study that talked about the fact that there's an alarming number of CEOs who aren't necessarily seeking outside leadership advice. The same study, of course, suggests that when they get it, they're grateful for it and they like it and they want more of it. But I'm wondering, especially with all the CEOs that you've hung around with in your career, and I'm sure you can probably know those who are very good about reaching out and asking for help and realizing that there's a larger team around them versus those who are more reluctant to do so. Why do you think, as it turns out, many CEOs are just reluctant to seek that out and ask for help?
Well, they're human. So just like in relationships, I don't need help. Let me do it myself, in a personal relationship or with trauma or with, adversity that you might be facing, some at-risk kind of activity, like with a business it's struggling or something, they're human. And so just the human frailties that you see in normal relationships, you see at companies only exasperated by the numbers of employees that they have. The same egotistical things you see in some families, you see also in a business itself, where they just believe it's them, that they are the reason there. That's why we have a group in our CSuite network called the Hero Club. I'm so excited by that because it's people who believe that they're not the only ones that are doing the leadership in the company, and they want to share with all the employees. They want to exhibit what we call hero company mentality, and I think that's real critical. I just do believe if you're fundamentally grounded in who you are. I was talking about this earlier today. I was talking with Stedman Graham,
Sure.
Graham Stedman. Or maybe it's Stedman Graham. Stedman Graham. God, my gosh, I'm just my head's spinning on the thing. And I was talking to Stedman, and he says if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of somebody else. So the first thing you got to do is talk about yourself. And I was talking to Dr. Randall Bell today about his new book, Me, We, Do, Be. That's so taking care of the me leads you to taking care of the we. And then you can be, doing, and then you can be whoever or whatever you want to be as a company or person or whatever it might be, a relationship. And I think there's a lot of that to that. So you do see that, even though you're surrounded by lots of great people sometimes, you're also surrounded by some really poor people, some really pissy people that you shouldn't be surrounded with. And so you have to be able to be very strong in who you are to understand the weakness or strengths of other people. And it's tough to do for some CEOs, more so than any other role probably, because you're expected to do it. And so it's not, you're expected to know it, not always do it. You know, we're not the smartest people in the room, okay? Because there's other people who are smarter than we. I mean, so you just have to recognize that it's okay to have other people who are smarter than you. Your job is to be the most strategic. And to be the most strategic, which means you should be open to the fact that, you know, this is where we're going. I don't always know the right path to get there, but let me find a guide. Let me find the best person here. Let me go and get those resources. Let me develop the team that will get us there in that way. And sometimes that's difficult for some people because they're human.
Well, taking care of the me, obviously, let's face it, it's the concept behind the fact that when you lose cabin pressure in an airplane and the oxygen mask drop, you put it on yourself and then you help others. Right? It's, you know, exactly kind of that in practice, you know, from that standpoint. Look, you know, you've been author of a number of books. I believe the most recent one, if I have this correct, is Think Big, Act Bigger, The Reward of Being Relentless. And would love for you to talk about that. And I loved the title largely because there's a guy, he, I think, still writes for Runner's World. His name is Joe Henderson. And he talked about this with regard to running and success and all. And he basically said that, you know, it isn't about doing things that no one else can do. It's about doing the things that anybody can do, but they just don't. Right? They're not relentless about it. They're not committing the time each and every day and doing the kinds of things that are necessary in order to help them be successful. So I'd love for you, if you could, to talk a little bit about the book, you know, in general. And then I want to talk to you about kind of what I mentioned to you before, kind of my, you know, chapter I zeroed in on when it comes to, you know, reaching out and touching someone as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, you know, that is my most recent book is Think Big, Act Bigger, The Rewards of Being Relentless. You know, it's been a good bestseller and we're pretty excited about it. And, you know, there's a lot of things in there that you talked about, the runner talking about. Look, I don't do anything somebody can't do themselves. I'm from a state most people only know as a spot on a map. It's a flyover state. I'm from South Dakota. There are more people in the stands, Indianapolis 500, the day of the race than my entire state. But yet, why is it that I was successful being a primetime TV show host, Fortune 100 corporate officer, bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career? You know, why? Well, it's because I can. You know, in fact, right over my door here, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm in my office. I have an office. Normally I don't like offices, but when I'm in Sioux Falls, they put me in a corner by myself because I'm so loud and the rest of the office doesn't want to hear everything. I'm talking and I'm very loud and demonstrative. So they said, you know, I got to go over there. And I'm always drinking Dunkin' coffee. So, which is probably even, I'm hyped up. I don't believe in decaf, nothing but the real thing. But, you know, in my office here, you know, because everybody says, well, you got offices in New York and South Dakota. Why? Well, because we can. You know, because we can. I just learned very early in my career, you know, at first I thought, well, I'm a big business. I got a big business in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Awesome. Till I realized, well, geez, I can be the biggest business in South Dakota. So why not do that? And then I figured out, well, geez, I can do this business in Iowa. I mean, I could see Iowa from my house. So, you know, why can't I do that? And then I figured out pretty soon, these are just mental blocks up here telling me I couldn't do the things I could do, and because I can. And so that's when I started to say this whole think big, act bigger. It's one thing to think big. I used to always think big. But if you can't implement the things you're thinking about, then, you know, an idea without implementation is only air. And so truly it's about how to act bigger, and then understand that the first time you do it, second time, maybe even third time or more, it's not going to work. Okay. You got to practice that. You got to be relentless at it. And truly the people who are relentless are the ones that, you know, that run the marathons, that beat the 4-minute mile. I couldn't even drive a 4-minute mile, much less run one. So, but those people are relentless. And, you know, if I really, really probably tried, yeah, maybe I could in my peak and prime probably have done that. But, you know, it's awesome to see people who are relentless in doing that, because that's who the people are. They're successful day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. That's what they do.
You know, and I think we can help one another be relentless in that way. You know, if I've got a friend who suggests to me that he wants to achieve something lofty, you know, I don't want to be the guy that says, you're never going to do that. You know, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and we are oftentimes surrounded by people who are those, negative influences on our lives. And I think it's, I don't tell people necessarily to ditch their friends, but I definitely want them to at least expand their circle, so that they have the kind of people around them who can be both encouraging, on one hand, but also hold you accountable a little bit. Hey, you said you were going to do this. How's that going? Well,
Right.
Kind of let it go or whatever. I'm going to say, because I think when we believe in one another and it comes from a good place, we're not calling each other out. We're not doing any of that, but we just, I think we can believe in each other and we can lift each other up, quite a bit. And
Well, who better to know than your friends or your family what you really are truly like? The key, Leo, as you well know, is we all have to be willing to accept it. We have to all be willing to say, we can have those conversations. It's not easy. Look, I mean, my wife will say something to me like the other day, she yelled at me because I sprayed some Roundup where I shouldn't have sprayed some Roundup. I mean, and I killed a lot of grass, and she pointed it out to me. And then I was like, I got real upset about it because I did not. And of course I did. And I do it all the time. And so we have to pledge our, we have to work through those issues.
yes.
I won't do that again. But.
Yes, we have to point these things out for one another from time to time. But anyway, also in your book, I did obviously notice that you get near the end. It's right around chapter 10. And it's this idea of reach out and touch someone. It's this idea of having a servant mentality, and also not only just about having a servant mentality and recognizing those around us, but also I think paying a bit of respect to the people who helped us early in our lives by paying it forward. So I'd love for you to just chat a little bit about that, because I thought it was a really terrific chapter in your book.
One of the things that I do, and I do very consistently, people reach out to me all the time, and I'm willing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you want to talk, you want to have a conversation. I'm a little bit more stringent about setting that up so it's clear. When somebody calls me and says, I just want to have coffee. Hey, I don't want to just have coffee. What do you want? What's the condition of satisfaction that you want to get out of it? But I'm a real believer, and I didn't get here by myself. I mean, Kevin Spacey, great example, who said, when you make it to the top, you have to remember to send the elevator back down for everybody else. And I'm a real believer in that, because the more that we can get everybody up, the more we can grow. The more, and I've always learned the more you give, the more you get. And so I'm constantly working on helping other people and reaching out. One, because it makes you feel good. Two, because it's the right thing to do. And three, you didn't get here because you did it by yourself. There were other people that helped you. And I've been in business for a long, long time where I've been real successful, but I've also had a lot of failures too. And in those failures, it's those people who took care of me, meaning they could have been mean, they could have been rough, they could have crushed me, could have squeezed me at the time, and it would have been a really bad thing in the end. But yet they took the initiative. So why can't I do that? Why can't I be helpful in that? And by doing that, and by keeping in touch with lots of people, which I do constantly. I mean, I send out emails 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or late at night. I'm just sitting there doing LinkedIn or this or that. And a lot of people say, well, Jeff, is this really you, or is this automated letter? No, this is really me, clipping and pasting, clipping and pasting and hitting send. And I do a lot of that, but I think it makes a big difference, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, and you can tell. And when I was first joined CSuite Radio, I got, genuine note that was to me, not just part of your usual template of, to anybody who becomes part of CSuite Radio. So that was obviously very evident.
But sometimes how busy I am if it's only 1 or 2 words, or it's a little bit longer. So I might just say booyah, or hey, saddle up, dude, we're ready to go, or fantastic, because I'm just, literally trying to get unburied from email or from all the things that are going, because we are growing at 300% already this year, and probably closer to 3,000 before the year's over with. So, which is awesome.
But making sure that you make that touch, though, is the difference, and that's what's appreciated. Quite frankly, it isn't necessarily how many words are in the email; it's the fact that it was sent and the thought was there. One of the things I'd love to maybe just close with is, oftentimes we can tend to also surround ourselves with people maybe too much like us, right? We we need to try to bring in, how do we bring in diversity of thought and people? And so if you were to offer some advice to our listeners with regard to how we should all maybe think about surrounding ourselves with the right people, should that look like? Should that feel like?
You know, I like healthy debate. I like people who challenge me and challenge what we do. You know, and I don't want to say go find the guys the biggest pain in your ass and then invite them in, but to some extent, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's you on edge. And I think, you know, just like a coach pushes you when you're working out and sweating and doing things, and you think you're going to die and you don't, you know, then you have those breakthroughs. I think the same thing holds true. I like an atmosphere of open debate where we can argue, yell, shout, have those kind of things. And it's okay. So you just have to find that operating style that you like, but then have people, you know, just to have everybody say how great you are and sit around. I can't stand meetings where we all just sit there and.
So we had a little bit of a technical glitch there. You said, I can't stand when we have meetings and people just sit there and.
Yeah, I can't stand where we just sit there and then everybody just sits there and nobody says anything and it's very quiet. Because to me, then you don't have enough tension. You're not causing things to move one way or the other. And I really believe, like in the theory of cognitive dissonance, you should say something that moves people one way or the other so that we can get to a better point. And I think it's important for us all to push each other. So find that person or persons, or find the method in which you can have that open discord, that open debate, because I think it's extremely healthy for an organization.
Well, Jeffrey Hayzlett, thank you so much for being on the Year of the Peer. I really look forward to, like I said, trying to continue to bring value to CSuite Radio. I know it's going to bring a lot of value to us, and I just can't tell you how much I've appreciated getting to know you through our talk today, and look forward to more of this in the future.
Well, thank you, and thanks for turning up the volume on business.
You bet. All right, you have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about Peer Advantage, to submit questions to Leo and our guest, and to subscribe to the Year of the Peer podcast, please visit us at leobottary.com. It's leobottary.com. This podcast is produced by me, Randy Cantrell, hosted, of course, by Leo Bottary. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Vibe Ace, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.